Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly and her Chinese counterpart had a testy exchange at the G20 summit in India. Now, this was over allegations that Beijing's envoys may be interfering in Canadian matters. Ms. Joly spoke with Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang, telling him that Canada will not accept Chinese meddling. Mr. Qin argued that the claims were simply rumors and that Canada shouldn't let those get in the way of the bilateral relationship. Now, this comes as the federal government continues to be under pressure to launch a national public inquiry to investigate possible Chinese election interference in Canada. The topic dominated a heated question period today on Parliament Hill. Well, joining us today to give us more insight into this issue is Dr. Charles Burton, China expert and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Dr. Burton, quite the hot topic we're unpacking today.
It is, yes, Nima. I think that, certainly CSIS and other agencies have indicated that there is a serious problem of Chinese regime interference activities in Canada. The issue really is that we don't have the details. The material is classified. So when they've had the hearings on this in the Commons Procedure and House Affairs Committee, and have had the senior officials from our security agencies there to give evidence, as soon as they get to the really interesting details, they tell us, well, this is classified. If we were to reveal these operational details, it could impact on our ability to engage in intelligence or put human resources into risk. So we don't really know exactly what they know beyond what's been reported in the Globe and Mail and in Global News by reporters who have received what are alleged to be leaked CSIS documents. And what we really want to know is if there is extensive interference in Canada's elections by a foreign state, why is it that we haven't seen any diplomats who would be overseeing such illegal activities expelled from Canada, or any of the agents that are alleged to have been used to implement the Chinese regime schemes brought up before a court of law to be accountable for the alleged criminal offenses? So this is really where the crux of the matter lies, is why hasn't there been any response to this that we know about, and who knew what and when, to give us some indication of what the issue is, and us being aware of interference, but us evidently not being able to do anything to prevent it from reoccurring in the next election.
Sounds like a lot of unanswered questions, Dr. Burton. Now, China continues to deny these claims, but for some further perspective, what sort of benefit would the Chinese government have in interfering in Canadian elections in the first place?
Well, in one of the CSIS documents, it was identified that one of the Chinese diplomats had suggested that China believed that the Liberal Party had policies that were more favorable to Chinese interests in Canada. And so, among the candidates that are alleged to have been supported illegally by Chinese government funding and Chinese government provision of human resources for campaigns, they're mostly in the Liberal Party, although there are allegations that China also favors some candidates from the Conservative Party, but they're fewer. So, from that point of view, China wants to get a Canadian government that will not constrain China's activities in Canada, particularly things like cyber espionage or influence operations designed to make people in the Canadian policy process beholden to a foreign power, or any of the other things that China has been accused of doing, such as obtaining dual use military technologies from Canadian research institutes by sending in researchers on false visa applications, hiding their identity as members of the People's Liberation Army, for example. There are any number of issues that we have concerns about that the government has not taken very much effective action against. And I think that the Chinese were concerned, particularly in the last election, that the Conservative Party's platform was promising to be much stronger on China concerns than previously, and the Liberals, didn't make this as much of a priority. So it's really about an identification of where their interests are, and certainly for a foreign state to attempt to to influence an election or to make statements favoring one party or another. There's nothing about that that's illegal. But these alleged kickback schemes where people would make donations to certain political parties and then could get reimbursed for the portion that they weren't able to deduct from their tax through a foreign government, that stuff is fraud, very illegal, and shouldn't be allowed.